Over the last few days, 9 more cards have been revealed in the Old Gods. Let's start with the neutral ones, of which there are only 2. Ancient Harbinger. This is the card which searches up the Old Gods. At this point, I'm pretty sure all the Old Gods are exactly 10 mana, so the Harbinger is there that you can put in your deck, and then you can just put an Old God into your hand at the start of your turn. So here's the optimist side of me. You put Ancient Harbinger in your deck of 4 Old Gods and Deathwing, and Ancient Harbinger will just, pick those up one at a time. And after 5 turns, you'll have your Deathwing, and you'll have your 4 Old Gods in your hand. And that'll be amazing. At 6 health on 6 mana, it's a pretty tough card, so theoretically could survive. So that's the optimist side. Here's the pessimist side. Drubashi Berserker is a 5 mana card, which has 7 health, but the main problem of it is it's a 2/7. Even Fugan is a 5 mana card, and it's a 4/7. The main problem with those cards is it just doesn't have enough impact. Ancient Harbinger is really, really scary, though. If you ever play an Ancient Harbinger, your opponent's priority, if they're not already killing your face, which could happen if you're playing a 6 mana 4/6, which is slow like this, they might even just ignore it and go for your face some more, because they still can hit your face on turn 6, 7, 8, and 9 before you actually get to play your 10 cost minion. So yes, this will, at least the good news is this will be a priority for them to kill. But also Sunwalker isn't being played, which is a 6 mana 4/5 taunt, which is Divine Shield. That card's even tougher than Ancient Harbinger. It turns out that Sunwalker is too easy to kill. So you would ideally be playing this card when you have the board, so that your opponent can't just trade into it. So this card basically faces the problem that a lot of cards that are, say, 6 mana and above, or even 5 mana and above face, where if they have weak stats and they don't immediately do something, they are usually not playable. Granted, this card is really good and gets you your 10 cost minion. Here's another bad news thing. I think you rarely put in more than 1 10 cost minion in your deck. Maybe you put in 2. So suppose you draw it naturally, which can certainly happen if you're playing a 6 mana card. Then your 6 mana card is literally a 4/6, and that's sad. So, my opinion, it's too slow. You can actually pick that card in Arena, and it will be really bad, the Ancient Harbinger. It's a 6 mana 4/6. Although, it'll be interesting. The card pick will go up if you actually draft any of the Old Gods. Or Deathwing. Let's look at something that you can get with the Ancient Harbinger. It's Y'Shaarj. A lot of people have compared this card to Varian Wrynn. Put 3 guys from your deck into your battlefield, potentially. Well, it draws the top 3, and if there are any minions there, it puts them into the battlefield. But sometimes, you don't get the minions, and you just draw cards, and that's bad. And this is also a neutral, and it's also 3/3 bigger than Varian. It passes the vanilla test, which is to say that the stats are pretty good. You're getting, even if you just pull out a Yeti, which I have to assume if you're playing a card like Y'Shaarj, that Yeti is going to be your average. It's 10 mana for 14/15. That's incredible! And it can keep going. But the main problem is by the time turn 10 comes around, you might be dead. And if you're playing a 10 mana 10/10 which doesn't do anything immediately, you might also be dead. There's been questions where, what if it pulls Ragnaros? Can Ragnaros then shoot? The answer is no. The end of turn doesn't work that way. This card does appeal to a certain audience, though, and that in itself is cool. It appeals to those players out there in Magic. They were termed Johnnies, Spikes, and Timmies. Timmies are the guys who really like the big cards. This certainly is a big card, and the Old Gods are going to have a lot of appeal to Timmies everywhere. Timmy, the guy who likes big guys. Johnny, the guy who likes making really weird, creative decks. Spike being the guy who wants to just win at all costs. Anyways, my opinion, from a Spike perspective, is that this card is going to be too slow. In Arena, this card's actually going to be okay. Possibly even good. Should I say possibly even good? In a world where Varian Wrynn is a top Arena pick, this card is a top Arena pick. You'll be very happy to get this in your deck. This is probably a good time to address the statement that pops up every once in a while. The meta is going to slow down. These cards should be evaluated in a vacuum. But it's not like it's just magically going to slow down. Yes, you lose some efficient cards like Shielded Minibot and Paladin Shredder, and I'm talking about standard here, of course. But it doesn't just magically slow down to that extent. The meta in Wild, or all the sets so far, is to the extent that you can't play 7 mana plus cards that don't have immediate effect. Basically, Dr. Boom is the slowest you can get, just because that card is so stat efficient. And most cards top off at Dr. Boom. If you have a big control deck, then sometimes you can sneak in a card that doesn't have any immediate impact on the board, like Ysera. But that's it. I mean, this card does do something immediately, so it has that going for it. It's just still a bit too slow since it costs 10 mana. If it does stay on the board, though, you are getting tremendous value, so you have that going for it. How about this? I just state that if the meta does slow down by a tremendous amount, your charge seems awfully good. To continue the theme of a slow meta, Cabalist Tome is one pretty cool spell which will really love slowish metas, or metas that can go into super late game fatigue mode. Currently, there does exist a fringe competitive deck out there, almost competitive deck, which runs a lot of discoveries with Bran. So we're talking Bran, Ethereal Conjurer, and Jeweled Scarab. And that deck's main goal is to just fatigue the opponent out and get massive value with duplicates and discovers, so that they're not really fighting with a 30-card deck, they're fighting by pulling in more cards. So really they're aiming for going through and slinging all the spells at each other, but they actually have a 40-card deck against a 30-card deck. And this is the card that was made for that deck, Cabalist Tome, since it pulls 3 additional mage spells, of which you could pull Cabalist Tome for infinite value. This card can be compared directly to Nourish from Druid, which is a 5 mana, draw 3 cards. And usually you would think that drawing 3 cards is better than adding 3 random spells. But these are mage spells, and yes, there are some bad ones in there, but there are also some really good ones in there. It'll fit into 2 main types of mage decks. One is a very slow control deck, control mage deck. 2 is the type of discover deck that tries to fatigue the opponent out, and then it pulls extra spells of Cabalist Tome. Both of those are almost the same type of deck, just a really slow control deck. It can kind of be compared to Ball of Spiders. 1 mana less, but you get 3 fewer 1/1s. It's a card that's even slower than Ball of Spiders, since you immediately get the 1/1s on the board, which impact the board. But it can be argued that random mage spells are better than random beasts. So this card will see some experimentation in those really late game mage decks. It's certainly not meant to be a card draw engine in a mid-range or a fast deck, though. And I think Freeze Mage has such a specific game plan that you wouldn't put in Cabalist Tome into it. In Arena, the card will be decent as a late game card. Similar to Nourish. Nourish is slightly good in Arena, especially if you need more late game. Cabalist Tome serves the same purpose in Arena. Vilefin Inquisitor. A cute little card. Isn't bad stats, especially for a Murloc. The card's purpose is pretty obvious. If you're building a Murloc deck, and Murlocs sure synergize off of each other, then you may want to consider Vilefin Inquisitor in your deck. Probably the only thing worth mentioning is that Justicar Trueheart does not work with this card, since it affects base hero powers. So if you play this card and then you play Justicar, nothing happens. But being able to summon Murlocs on call is pretty powerful, because part of the problems of Murlocs is that you would have so many Murloc buffing cards but not have a steady supply of Murlocs. Vilefin Inquisitor gives it to you. I don't believe with the current set of Murlocs that this card will be very useful, since the entire idea of buffing them with Cold Light Seer or having the Murloc War Leader with these 1/1 Murlocs, they seem a bit too slow. Perhaps if there's some more Murloc synergy in the future. But for now, a very cute card. In Arena, this is going to be just a 1 mana 1/3, which is not very useful in a class like Paladin. But basically, this card doesn't have enough impact. Ravaging Ghoul. With Unstable Ghoul rotating out, Ravaging Ghoul is coming in to kind of take its place. This card is very strongly statted as a 3 mana 3/3, which just does something immediately when it comes to play. And it covers up Warrior's weakness of not being able to deal 1 to things very nicely by being able to deal 1 to everything. And you'll sometimes want to deal 1 to your own guards, because then you get in Battle Rage. or sometimes you summon patrons with it. Speaking of this card in Patron, though, this card feels a little bit too slow in Patron. Part of the benefit of Whirlwind is the fact that it only costs 1. So imagine if you have to do Grim Patron into Ravaging Ghoul. It costs 8. Or it does 6, with a tick from Thaurissan on both Ravaging Ghoul and on Grim Patron. But then again, you could just Grim Patron Whirlwind for 4 if you had Emperor Thaurissan. So I don't think this card really fits into Grim Patron that much in a format where Cruel Taskmaster wasn't seen in Patron also. This thing is too slow for Patron, but that's not to say that the card isn't good. It's just a well-statted 3-mana 3/3. Very similar to that N'Zoth's First Mate, which is a card that didn't really fit into any deck, but it was like a value card and a tempo card. In a similar way, Ravaging Ghoul is also that card. So I think where this Ravaging Ghoul fits in is into a deck that we haven't seen yet. Some kind of mid-range warrior or some kind of aggressive warrior. Perhaps it activates and rages, perhaps it draws cards from your Acolyte of Pain, but it's probably too slow for Grim Patron. This is one of those things where Arena Warriors matter, is yet again a theme. Obviously a really, really good card in Arena. In a world where Dread Inferno is insane, a Warlock 6-mana 6/6 which does much the same thing, for Warrior Ravaging Ghoul is going to be a blessing. Gets that 1 damage in when it's very difficult to deal 1 damage. And it's common, so you'll see it quite a bit, especially if the new expansion, and if the new expansion cards get a boost in percentage in Arena. So you'll probably see a lot of Ravaging Ghouls in Arena, and they're going to be quite good. Mire Keeper is a card that a lot of top-level players looked at when it first got released just earlier today. They were in disbelief. They looked at this card and they were like, what? Really? It is ridiculously OP. Wild Growth is seen as a really good card. If you value the Wild Growth at 2 mana, then it's slumped into another card, which is 2 mana, and then you've got like a 2 mana 3/3, and you draw and play a Wild Growth. Or, at worst case, you've got your 4 mana 3/3 and 2/2. 4 mana 5/5, that's pretty good. In a baseline where 4 mana 4/5 is kind of considered the baseline. I do certainly expect that we're going to see a lot of Mire Keeper around. Druid decks. It's just a very strong value card. That said, though, there are a few things to temper the fact that it looks insane, that make it slightly less insane. Wild Growth is best on turn 2. So in that sense, Mire Keeper is too slow. Silverhand Knight is a pretty good card in theory. 5 mana, you get a 4/4 and a 2/2. So that's 5 mana 6/6, but you don't see Silverhand Knight being played and constructed anywhere. That said, though, in new Standard, possibly you'll see some Silverhand Knight, and it's a really, really good value Arena card, so why wouldn't it see play in Standard? It might. Flexibility is nice. If you play this on turn 4, you're almost always going to gain an empty mana crystal, as long as your curve allows that. Nice and flexible, always relevant no matter what point of the game you're at, because if it's early game, perhaps you want the mana crystal. If it's late game, perhaps you want the 4 mana 5/5 with this stuff. Really good card. Just wanted to temper the OP calls, though. In Arena, this card's going to be a top pick. And you'll probably usually summon the 2/2 slime with it, just because you ramp into less stuff. Unless you specifically have a 6-drop that you want to play the next turn. One card that you can actually compare Mire Keeper to, which emphasizes its power, is Paladin Shredder. Paladin Shredder is a 4 mana 4/3. Death Rattle you'll usually get somewhere around a slightly better than a 2/2. Mire Keeper you immediately get the 2/2. And it's just 1 less attack. That's very impressive. Now, one more thing that's worth considering. Wild Growth is considered reasonable, partly because if you draw it in the super late game, it's not a dead card, you can just cycle it. One of the particular rulings on this card is that if you gain an empty mana crystal with Mire Keeper, you do not actually get to draw a card on turn 10. If you're on turn 10, or if you're at 10 mana, you're going to play Mire Keeper and you're going to summon a 2/2 slime. But you're still not sad, because that's a 4 mana 5/5. So a strong card, expect to see quite a bit of Mire Keeper and all sorts of Druid decks in the upcoming days. In both Standard, Wild, and Arena. Especially if Force of Nature Savage War is around, which it should not be. but Druids love summoning 2 things as opposed to just 1. And really splitting into a 3/3 and a 2/2, I think is probably slightly better than a 5/5 in the sense that you can more precisely assign your damage, and swipe precisely does a certain amount of damage to everything, so you want to chisel everything down a little bit. This is a keeper here. Let's conclude this review with a class that got a lot of love with the last 3 cards. And good for them, because they needed it. Shaman's gotten 3 very aggressively costed cards. Very efficient cards. First of all is Master Evolution. And 4 mana, 4/5 stats already make it better than Yeti. Well, no, already make it Yeti. Which is a decent card. But the battle cry is actually something good. So you boost a minion by 1. There's been some maths done by Reddit sleuths about apparently the best manas to boost is boost your 3 mana card to a 4 mana card, or boost your 6 mana card to a 7 mana card for the biggest stat increase. Tuskar Totemic is generally a good mid-range card. So when you play your Master of Evolution, buff the 3 cost card, and you put it into the 4 category, it's usually going to get a pretty decent stat increase. Let's say the stat increase is 1/1, then you're basically getting a 4 mana 5/6. But wait, that's not all. You play your Fire Elemental, you kill something with it, you're pretty happy. Let's say your Fire Elemental gets to kill like a 4 or 5 out there, those will probably exist. Your Fire Elemental becomes a 6/1. You play the Master of Evolution on the Fire Elemental, it gets turned into a 7-drop, 6/7 being a really good jump in stats. Let's say on average you get your 7/6. You turned your 6/1 into a 7/6 for an increase of 7 stats, and you've got your 9 stats here, making the Master Evolution a 16 stat card for 4 mana. I mean, just think about that. That's like a 4 mana 8/8. So, Master of Evolution, pretty good. Now, even in the worst case, let's say you play your 2 mana hero power and you summon a 1 mana totem. It's a 0/2. You play the Master Evolution, it gets turned into a 2-drop, and of course, by playing with a lot of Shredders over the days, we know that a Shredder 2-drop is worth about 2.2/2.2. So, when you play your Master of Evolution, even with no board, if you have 6 mana, you go Totem, you go Master of Evolution, you're gonna get roughly 6/7 of stats. That's better than Ogre, plus you've split it out into 2 guys. Fun stuff, if you play Bran Bronzebeard into Master of Evolution, it does in fact evolve twice, and then you're going to end up with a friendly minion costing 2 more, even if you play it on Bran. Other small things, if you Master of Evolution something into a mana cost that doesn't exist, nothing happens. For example, if you Master of Evolution Molten Giants, or you Master of Evolution a 10 cost, since there are no 11 costs out there right now. So, this card's really good. Also worth mentioning, if you're playing this card in Standard, those friendly minions are always going to be the standard ones, so you can't get old wild cards. That's the case for cards such as Unstable Portal as well, if Unstable Portal were in this format. You only ever see cards that are actually in the standard format, as a reminder. Hey look, it's another value Shaman card. To join the ranks of Doomhammer, we've got Twilight's Hammer, another 5-cost Shaman weapon. Deathbite is a 4/2, and it was known as a really, really good card. At the end of the 4/2, you got to Whirlwind. This one's Death Rattles, you summon a 4/2 Elemental. A 4/2 is worth more than a Whirlwind. In fact, a 4/2 is worth about 2 mana, whereas a Whirlwind is worth like about 1 mana. Which means that Twilight's Hammer is costed competitively to Death's Bite. It's been mentioned that this trades with Harrison. You play the Twilight Hammer, you swing at something, say they play Harrison, they're like, let's put this in the museum. You still get your 4/2 Elemental, and then you use the 4/2 Elemental to take revenge on the Harrison. So that's tempo right there. Twilight's Hammer basically is getting you 3 card advantage also. Your 1 Twilight's Hammer is usually going to be worth about 3 cards. You kill 2 things with it, you get a 4/2. At that state of the game, perhaps you're not fully killing 2 things with it, maybe you're wounding 2 things heavily, and maybe the Elemental doesn't fully kill something itself. But all in all, this card will probably take down about 2 card value worth of stuff, with the best case being 3. Not to mention, this 5 mana cost slot is currently pretty tough to fill. There's not that many good 5 mana cost cards out there with Loatheb and Sludge Belcher rotating out. So, picking up a good 5 mana card might be more important in standard format than people are giving it credit for right now. I like this Valley card. Mid-range Shaman is certainly looking to shape up to be quite a force. Better than Doomhammer because even though Doomhammer theoretically does 16 damage with your 8 swings and possibly more with Rockbiter, you usually have to take a lot of damage with it due to its small attack value if you want to clear guys. Twilight Hammer, on the other hand, you just clear the guys and you take 1-2 swings of pain. And that's not too bad. Not to mention the 4-2 Elemental can do a lot more damage. And it doesn't have Overload, because Doomhammer is kind of like 7 mana, so this is just 5. In Arena, it's going to be a very high pick. I think I even go as far as to say that this will be the best Shaman epic card in Arena. And finally, we've got another Shaman card, which doesn't have Overload, and is good, and is mid-range / control. The Thing from Below is a 6 mana 5/5, which very realistically can get down to a 4 mana 5/5, and could even go down to a 0 mana 5/5. Costs 1 less for each totem you've summoned in this game, and with Taunt, I'm pretty sure that quite a few decks out there would play 4 mana 5/5 Taunts. All you have to do is summon 2 totems this game, so it doesn't even have to be in your hand. So what does that mean? Using your hero power is summoning totems, playing Totem Golem is summoning totems, playing Tuskar Totemic and having it summon a totem is summoning a totem, Flame Tongue Totem is summoning a totem. It's kind of like a smaller Frost Giant in a way, because each time you're using the hero power you're reducing the cost of Thing from Below by 1, but it is costed much more competitively than Frost Giant. You already had the beginnings of a mid-range Shaman deck way back in the day, but it was just thought to be weaker than mid-range Paladin, rightfully so, because mid-range Paladin had Shield and Miniabot and Muster for battle, whereas while Totem Golem and Tuskar Totemic were good, they just didn't quite match up as well. So now I've got this really good tribal card. Thunderbluff Valiant was going to be a pretty good mid-range Shaman finisher, and it had some Inspire, it wanted you to press the button a bit, so why not toss in the Thing from Below as well? That deck had Totem Golem, it had Tuskar Totemic. It liked playing Thunderbluff Valiant and then pressing the button. Thing from Below, natural fit. It'll easily go down to a 4 mana 5/5, which will be value. Could go down to a 0 mana 5/5, which is really good. In Arena, I expect this card to also be very good, because all you have to do is press the totem button once, and then it's a 5 mana 5/5 taunt, which is actually very good. It's even worth mentioning that this does kind of combo with Master of Evolution, because when you play this card, it'll be a 6 cost card, even if you paid 0 for it. So you play your 0 mana Thing from Below, and then you play your Master of Evolution on Thing from Below, and bam, you've got your 4/5 and a 7 for just 4 mana. Or if you really want to live the dream, you play your Thing from Below for 0 mana, and then you trade it into a 4/5, and then your Thing from Below becomes a 5/1, and you've killed the guy with Thing from Below, you play your Master of Evolution, you transform your Thing from Below, you get a fresh 7 mana card. That's looking out for the value. So that's a good haul for a Shaman with this set of cards. We'll see what lies in store for all the other classes in the upcoming cards.
Now I've got a tale to tell you of the ones from long ago. There's an evil that's been dreaming, but now it's softly screaming. From the darkness, their power will grow. Their voices are made of poison. When you listen, you are sure to be disturbed. You can lock your doors. You can say your prayers. No creature can resist their wicked words. Never mind, no need to worry. That's all just a story of the whispers of the old gods.